Hi, welcome to another episode of Books and Looks. I'm Jen, and I make these videos where I talk about a book that I recently read while I get ready for the day, do my makeup. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, I hope that you follow, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So today I'm going to talk about a book by James Patterson that a book by James Patterson called Max Einstein The Genius Experiment. And it's the first book in a series of books. I don't know how many there are. I just came across this one and thought it looked good, so I started reading it. Well, it is about this little girl, Maxine Einstein, and typical to middle grade books, which this is, Max Einstein is, a great child who gets by on her own completely. She's an orphan and she's homeless, and she basically survives by her wits and her genius. She has a few, other homeless people friends that help her out and provide some, friendship and security for her. But essentially, she's an orphan who lives in an abandoned building. Well, so she's a genius. And as it turns out, there are these two organizations that are looking to use her for their business. The one is good and one is evil. So the evil one is called the Core. And basically, they want Max to work for them so that she can invent things that they can in turn make a lot of money off of. They are inspired by greed and power, and they just want, inventions so that they can make money. So basically, in the beginning of the story, they kidnap her and force her, well, they don't force her, they try to force her to work for them and invent things for them so that they can, have cool stuff that they can sell and make tons of money on. But the good group called CMI, which is Change Makers Institute, they're known as CMI. They rescue Max from the Core before she has to do anything awful. Invent things that are actually, bad for the human race, because they want her to work for them and do good. Their goal is to use child geniuses to figure out the world's problems and come up with solutions. And it sounds a little weird when you say it, like, why would they want children to do this? And the reason is because children, they think outside of the box. They aren't hampered by, oh, well, it should be this way, it should be that way. Children can come in and, have some really creative and unique ideas that an adult would not think of, because, as we get older, we get less creative and stuck in this, social pressures and whatnot. Kids don't have that. So the CMI, they basically rescue her from this group and they bring her to their facility in Jerusalem. So they have this big facility in Jerusalem, and in the meantime, the Core is like trying to find her because they still want her. So the Core is still chasing her wherever they go. But as it turns out, CMI isn't just working with Max. They have a dozen kids from all over the world who are geniuses and in different ways. So, like, there's this one little boy who's a genius in computer robotics. There's another girl who's a genius in, like, weather systems and, like, space and aerospace and stuff. And then there's another one who's a logistician, and another little kid who's really good with, that's all I can think of off the top of my head. But the point is there's all these kids who have all these different skill sets, and they're all geniuses in their field, but they're all like between 10 and 13. So they all get together at the CMI facility in Jerusalem, and at first they have to compete with one another for the leadership role. So, like, one of these kids is going to be in charge of all the other kids, and they have to complete these different tests to determine their leadership ability, their strengths, their weaknesses, things of that nature. And of course, seeing as though Max is the title character, she wins the competition. The competition essentially was like a third of the book, and there were 3 parts. three parts. Three parts to this test that she has to do. There was a written exam, there was an interview, and then there was, I forget the third one, but there was a written test, and there was 100 questions, and they had 8 hours to complete it. But Max didn't finish any of them. She read through all of them, determined that you only need to answer 2 of them, and that will answer all of the other questions. And when they interview her later about her test answers, she's like, well, I memorized the whole thing, and I realized that they all basically asked the same thing, and I only really needed to answer these 2. And they didn't believe her, so they asked her, like, well, what was question 17? What was question 34? And of course, she was honest. She really did memorize the whole thing, and she remembers the questions. And they were like, well, can you answer it for us now? And she did. And she said, and like I said, that's basically the same answer that I gave you for number 99 and 100. Like, those 2 answer all of them. So they were like, okay, very impressed, blah, blah, blah. I am so sorry I have a cold, and that does not look great. Maybe I should put on a little bit. I don't usually put this on, but I think I will today to cover up some of that redness. So anyway, Max ends up winning the competition. She is proven to be the best of all the children, to be a leader and lead all of these kids in solving problems. So that looks a little bit better, yeah. So after like a third of the book has gone by, and she is chosen to be a leader, and at first they were like, okay, thanks everybody, you can go home now. But at this point, Max is like, wait a minute, these are the first friends I've ever had. These are the first people who I've ever felt a connection with, because, you know, she was an orphan, she was homeless. So she's like, I will not do this unless you keep all of my friends on the team. Because they originally brought in like all these adults who had the exact same skill sets and the exact same expertise. And she's like, no, I thought the whole point was that kids were more creative and not stuck in their ways and not, you know, compelled to follow social norms. So I don't want to work with the adults. I want to work with the kids, or I quit. And of course, they listened to her. Again, it's a middle grade book, so a little bit of it is far-fetched. Like, that wouldn't really happen, but that's the fun of the story. It's cute, and it's very kid-focused. So Max ends up getting her way, and all of the kids end up becoming her team. They send all the adults home, and then they start on their first mission. And it's a smaller mission, just kind of like as a preview of what are they capable of, where can we go from here. And this is about the halfway point of the book. They go on their first mission. They go to a small village in the Congo of Africa, because this village doesn't have electricity. They've been off the grid for a while. There was like a tsunami or an earthquake or something that basically ruined their village. And now it's basically overrun by bad guys who force everybody to work in the mines to mine something I can never remember. Basically, it's some ingredient that is needed in cell phones and computers that is in that area. I can't remember what it's called. It's something I had never heard of before this book, but I guess it's a real thing. I don't know. So all these people who live in this village have to work in the mines, like, 10 hours a day. The kids can't go to school. They work in the mines also. And essentially, it's just awful for everybody. They don't have electricity. They are under the thumb of these, powerful, mean people with big guns that are basically forcing them to do what they do. And, otherwise they won't feed them. They won't protect them from whatever. So it's very mafia-like. But anyway, so this village has to do these mining jobs. So the CMI group with Max and the kids have to come up with a solution to help these people get out of this place where they're stuck. So they come up with the idea of giving them electricity through solar panels, and then they can use that electricity to start businesses, and in particular, textile businesses. They'll make and sell clothes. So they have their contacts and their ideas, and they end up getting solar panels, and they have some funding, but not a lot. So plus they're a nonprofit. So they get these organizations to donate. They have, some of the skills that they have is getting resources. So they end up getting resources. They get the solar panels, they get sewing machines, they get materials to get the business started. They get them computers for managing everything. And it starts out really well. They get They get there with all their materials and they start doing what they're doing. And this is when we find out that the core has been tracking them and following them the whole time. So the core shows up and basically pays the thugs that are actually there messing with the community members, pays them to go and destroy all of the materials that they have put together. They put together all these solar panels and they started building it out and they tested it and everything works. They're ready to get the sewing machines and computers all set up, and they leave the village temporarily to like go celebrate and have like a nice dinner or something. And while they're gone, the thugs come and destroy all their solar panels. So they come back a few hours later, and all the work that they just spent like 2 weeks doing is completely destroyed. So they're all super bummed and distraught and feeling defeated, and basically mostly want to give up. But Max, which is part of the reason that Max was selected, refuses to give up. And she's like, listen, there's a solution to this. There's no reason to give up. These people need our help. We have given them all this hope. We can't just like go away with this destruction and leave them back where they were when we arrived. Like, we cannot do that. So she convinces her whole team to stay and continue working, which, as it turns out, was the best possible idea, because shortly thereafter, like a day or two later, more resources show up. Like they had originally contacted 2 different organizations to help with the materials and the building supplies. And the one was like, we're not sure if we can help you. We'll get back to you. And then they didn't. And so they went with the other group. But then that first group came back and was like, oh, by the way, yes, we have everything. So they ended up getting everything again. And they redid everything. And since they already figured out how to do it and went through like all their struggles and difficulties, they could do it real quick this time. So it turned out really well. They got everything back up and running, and they were back where they were again. And then while they were working, 2 of the kids get kidnapped. And it turns out the core shows up in the Congo where they are and takes these 2 kids. They originally wanted Max because she has like special skills with, people skills and hope and insight and personable, and really truly cares about the human race. Like, that's her specialty, on top of being a physics genius. So they end up, instead of taking Max, they take 2 other children. And so Max and her friends and some of the adults from the CMI are like, oh my gosh, we have to go save them, obviously. And on the way to save them, they actually get stopped by the Congo, like, mafia people who are forcing the villagers to work. They get stopped, and these people are like, we're not letting you through. The Corps paid us to make sure that you don't go anywhere until they tell us otherwise, blah, blah, blah. And so, again, Max stands up to them and says, listen, like, why are you doing this? Why won't you just let us go save our friends? Why, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, these are basically like evil people who are forcing people in a village to do horrible work under the threat of death. But, this 12-year-old girl effectively convinces them to give up their evil ways, and instead, Max and her friends are going to help them start their own legitimate business because they have like a bunch of computers and cell phones that they have stolen from tourists and missionaries and whoever. And like the Corps paid them off with a bunch of stuff, but they also don't have power. So they have all this stuff, but they can't use any of it. So it's very funny. So as it turns out, Max convinces them to come to their side. Max and her team they're going to get them set up with solar power facilities so that they can have an electronics store and sell electronics and make money that way. Because, whenever you're making the kind of money that, bad guys make, that's definitely the way they want to go is, let's go ahead and let's just make up a cell phone store instead. Again, this is made for like middle schoolers, so it's perfectly plausible when you're 12. So the bad guys end up accepting her offer. They agree to help Max rescue her friends from the evil Corps because they have seen the inside of the facility, so they know their way around. They know where the kids are being held. They know that the kids were taken specifically to do, like, create inventions and build things that they can in turn make money off of. So they know where they are. They know all the deal. Why, how, I'm not sure. But they know everything. So they end up helping Max and her team finding and rescuing her friends. And as they do this is finally the end of the story. As they do this, they actually get them very easily because all of the core, there's like 5 people there. The core is bigger, but there's like 5 people there. They all escape in their helicopter, of course. They escape in their helicopter from all these bad guys that are now good guys on Max's side. And they leave the kids behind. So the core, evil core people all escape in their helicopter. The kids are rescued. The Congolese, I'm not sure if that's correct. The Congo bad guys are now good guys. All the kids in the Congo and the families now have like a business that they've started with textiles, thanks to the electricity that Max and her team put together. And it basically ends on a pretty happy note, except that the core is still out there, is still coming after them, trying to stop them and steal their idea so that they can make money off of it instead of make the world a better place just to make the world a better place. Like, they want to make money. So that's basically how the story ends. There was a little epilogue where, like, the whole story, they kept talking about the benefactor. The benefactor is going to take care of the cost. The benefactor has arranged for all of the materials to arrive at the village that we're going to. The benefactor has selected you to participate in this activity, etc., etc. Who's the benefactor? So this fun little epilogue, at the very end, they leave the Congo. They are going to have, like, I don't know, a 6-week break or something of that nature before they go to their next mission, to be determined, book 2. I don't know what it is. They didn't specify, but they're all going to go home for a little while, visit their families. But Max is like, I don't have a family. I don't have a home. What am I supposed to do? And they were like, oh, don't worry. The benefactor has that all set up for you. So they bring her back to New York where she was living. And the benefactor actually meets her at the airport. And she gets to meet. She's the only one who gets to meet the benefactor. It turns out his name is Ben. Oh, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but look at all the fuzzies from my powder. Anyway, the benefactor's name is Ben, which is adorable because he's the benefactor. And he is also a kid. He is a 14-year-old genius who is also an orphan. The reason he has all this money is because his parents were like gajillionaires. And they passed away a few years ago. And because he's like a super genius, they basically said that he can have access to his money immediately because he's good, he's responsible, he will do good things with it. So he started this organization, CMI, in order to, and that's also why he works with kids, because he's a kid himself. So he ends up using the fortune to do good things around the world, and he only wants to work with kids, and he chose Max, and blah, 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 blah. So the story ends with Ben, the benefactor, getting Max set up in her own apartment back in New York where she's used to everything. And like the couple of people that she knew, like the other homeless people that she knew, also were given homes in the same place that Ben set her up. He brought all of her other homeless friends to live in this apartment building too. Like he paid for their rent for a year and like gave them food for a year and like get them all set up. So he's like a really nice guy. And then that's basically how the story ends, with the benefactor giving them what they need and then basically saying like, okay, the next step is our next project, which will be in a few weeks, a few months, something like that. So it has a really cute, happy ending, which we always like. It had some really good, interesting action scenes, exciting action scenes. It had some good humor in it. Like some of the kids were really funny. It had mystery, so you didn't know who the benefactor was. You didn't know if the core was good or CMI was good for about the first quarter. You weren't sure who was the good guy, who was the bad guy. So that was kind of fun. It has a happy ending, which we all like, but also a cliffhanger, so you know there's going to be more. It was really, really good. I actually really highly recommend it. I'm going to try to read some of the other ones as soon as I have a chance. I only have like 150 million books on my TBR, but let's just add one more. So yeah, I will be reading more of them. I recommend you do as well. Sorry, this is really professional right here, isn't it? I highly recommend it. I'm gonna give it I don't know, like an 8.5. It had really good pacing, really cute characters. If I was a teenager or a middle schooler, I would probably give it a 10 out of 10. But as an adult, it was a little predictable. It was a little cheesy, but again, it is written for middle schoolers. So again, if I was a middle schooler or even a high schooler, I would probably give it a 10 out of 10. But as an adult, an avid reader, I give it like an 8.5 out of 10 because I can definitely appreciate it for what it was and what it offered. There we go. There we go. Better. I can definitely appreciate it for what it was, what it offered, how it was written, all of that. But yeah, so that is my story. That is my look. I hope you like what I did today. It's a basic look. I don't have any plans today. I'm going to the salon, so I did not do my hair. But yes, my basic look today. I did put a little bit of sparkle on. I hope it translates on camera. I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed the book. If you have read it before, I would love to hear what you think of it. Put some comments below if you read it. Tell me what you think about it. If you read any of the other books in the series, I'd love to hear what you think about it. And as always, if you have additional books or any particular products you'd like me to review / use, any looks you want me to try, please write a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And yeah, so I'm going to get going. Have a wonderful day and stay beautiful inside and out. Bye.